I've been looking forward to these types of videos once we reach into the new year, mainly the fact that I've been binge watching Steven Universe from July to September of last year. And even though that I'm in the middle of the category of this show being a great show, while the other a downward spiral. And I gotta say, I can tell that throughout watching the critiques from other people praising the show and criticizing the show, I can say without a shadow of a doubt that Steven Universe is definitely a roller coaster of a cartoon. So for this video involving Steven Universe of this year, that is, I'm gonna be judging these two specials. The original Steven Universe, Change Your Mind, against Steven Universe's Future's finale. I'm also going to be adding Homeward Bound as part of the finale of Future. Mainly the fact that Spinell is part of it, and after the movie, I can tell that that there's going to be so many issues regarding to how the finale of Future could have been much more better by taking some of the elements from the movie. But then again, Steven Universe has a really stressful schedule when it comes to the production. And believe me, people have been talking about how rushed this entire show is, and I mostly agree with them, but on the other hand, since that Cartoon Network was mostly responsible with this, I honestly don't blame the writers from Steven Universe. Despite the pacing way too rushed, I still enjoy Change Your Mind for how Steven goes through new lengths in order to talk to White Diamond about everything going on in Homeward. I mean, throughout me binge watching the series, I really admire Yellow Diamond and Blue Diamond when it comes to the relationship. Granted, the genocides, but at the same time, you have no idea how many people are completely criticizing White and Blue Diamond for being genocides and doesn't deserve to be redeemed because of the lines that they cross. Especially White Diamond, who makes her first appearance in this finale. And considering that the pacing of all the episodes in season 5 was seriously rushed, I can tell that Cartoon Network really messed up big time on just forcing Rebecca Schucker and her crew members to write these episodes as fast as possible, while completely rejecting ideals because they can't be able to fit them all in one of the episodes. But then again, it's mostly for filler episodes, which I'm going to be discussing at a later time. I can say that one of the positives from Change Your Mind is well, Steven, Paul, Amethyst, and Garnet fuse together to become Obsidian, and they try to get inside White Diamond's head. And believe me, I honestly think that when it comes to the unpredictable fusions that we've seen from this finale, I can say that Obsidian was just the perfect time to actually see Steven and the Crystal Gems fuse together by getting inside of White Diamond. Granted, there are other alternatives to get inside of White Diamond's head, but at the same time, I don't really consider this as fan service. People have been looking forward to seeing this fusion for such a long time, and I can say that this was probably a good place to have Steven fuse with the Crystal Gems. But at the same time, I'm still having debates on if Change Your Mind's pacing was better than the Future's finale's pacing, because throughout the epilogue of Steven Universe Future, the pacing sometimes works, but at the same time, the writing is just way too all over the place when it comes to Steven's trauma and the emotion that he's dealing with when it comes to moving on, and also completely going through a lot of stress during his childhood. Yes, people say that Steven during his youth didn't have much trauma during earth-shattering danger, but you need to understand that not every other child can be aware of what's going on. I mean, yes, they can be aware of a crime going on, they can be aware of a tornado going on. However, since that Steven is a completely different type of character who uses to be a child, is going through so much grown-up situations, considering that a lot has changed in Beach City. Other than the Crystal Gems doing field trips and running schools at Little Homeward, he's aware that people are going to be leaving him, and considering that he went through so much stress in the earlier seasons, I can tell that you can actually admire his trauma the most. Granted that his character is completely different in this season compared to the movie, but I really think that he really wanted to do something different when it comes to Steven's stress into dealing so much trauma of his past and the fact that his past is coming to haunt him, which is something that he doesn't usually experience. I can understand that he's much more braver and more mature in the original, and people say that he's completely out of character in future. But I'm just gonna point out that Steven's perspective, and I'm not saying the Steven only perspective, I'm talking about Steven's own perspective, is dealing with a crisis that no other child went through. And considering that he was transformed into Steven and not from birth, from his mother, really goes to show that Steven is one of the most unique and interesting characters in any other cartoon. This is one of the positives I can give for Future's finale, especially the epilogue in general. Granted, there are so many issues, but if I ever get to them, this video will be much more longer than it needs to be. I'm just gonna say right now that even though that Steven's trauma isn't really fully executed, I can say that for what they did, they really tried to actually show you that Steven's trauma is really starting to become worse and worse as the epilogue continues. Granted, the pacing is way too fast, and I do have to agree that multiple episodes should be added to this epilogue to give more character development and screen time for Steven and the other characters, especially after I Am My Monster. But for what it is, I think that they really want to actually make the emotional scenes perfection. I can say that Steven in future is mostly a debate if he's a good character or not. I did say that he's mostly out of character, but considering that he's just trying to deal with a midlife crisis, that most of his friends and families are going to be away for the most of his life since that he's 16, I can tell that he's just trying to actually keep this in a mature way while also just trying to keep an open mind despite all the issues that he's dealing with. Yes, he is the opposite of mature from what he's behaving, but what I can give Steven credit is that he's just trying to make sure that he isn't really showing the other side of himself to anyone around him. As for his role in Change Your Mind, I honestly think that other than when he confronts White Diamond, I can tell that he really did what he could in order to stop White Diamond from making things a lot more worse. Especially that White Diamond's motivation is to have every single diamond on the homeworld completely flawless. And considering that this is a lesson involving changing your mind, I honestly think that they really hammer in on the fact that Steven is offering forgiveness to White Diamond. If you ask me, I guarantee you that they did have plans to give White Diamond more development when it comes to her motivations, especially the fact that she is way worse than Blue and Yellow Diamond. Well, not as worse as Pink Diamond, but still at number 2. So when I completely see that she gets redeemed just because Steven gave his forgiveness to her, makes it really difficult for me to actually see some kind of a different side in White Diamond. I mean, tell me, if the Wilds actually give White Diamond more development and we get to see everything of her motivations when it comes to stopping everything in her path, then you might understand her motivations. Although, you would still be on the boat on if she redeemed or not. And to be quite honest, considering that the white, blue, and yellow are genocide diamonds, I really think that I can't either pick a side. I mean, I do like yellow and blue diamond, but when it comes to White Diamond, the development and execution is honestly what really hurts Change Your Mind. And when they returned in Homeward Bound, I can honestly think that they're at least trying to do some insignificant changes, which people, mainly analysis people, won't easily cite these characters that easily. Because as far as I'm concerned, being a genocide is so unforgivable. But for me personally, considering of how the World of Diamonds lived, they probably didn't understand how genocide works. Granted, they are genocide, but if you really think about it, you can really tell that the Diamonds didn't have a mindset after the war that Pink Diamond caused. People can express their opinions on the fact that they know full well that the Diamonds shouldn't be redeemed. But when you completely look at what Steven is going through, he sees something in the Diamonds that Pink doesn't. Because as you can tell, Pink really one of the worst characters ever. And considering that I've watched so many reviews and people discussing about this topic, it really just shows that Rebecca Shoko is just desperate to have a big subversion that just instantly backfires. Anyway, let's discuss the second episode of the Futures finale, and that is Everything's Fine. This, in my opinion, is the least best out of the 4 episodes of Futures finale, mainly the fact that it's mainly about comedy of Steven's just trying to do something despite that his PTSD is just getting worse. And then we just get back to the main plot at the end of the episode. I cannot even look at this episode the same way I did with my first viewing because of how they try to make trauma really serious, but with this type of comedy, they're completely opposites that don't fit together. I get that this is supposed to show that Steven is buying up his emotions too much and at this point it's way too late, but they could have replaced the comedy with something really serious involving his trauma instead of just making things worse for everyone. And it's really hard for me to actually see that everyone around him is still forgivable towards Steven. Yes, Steven isn't like every other human, considering that he's an actual crystal gem, but at the same time, considering that he's learned so many lessons during his childhood, even with all the trauma, I can guarantee you that he can actually do some right decisions instead of just buying up his emotions completely. When Steven completely told everyone about what's been happening with him recently, and then at the end of the episode he turns into a monster, it's literally the best part about this episode, except that it's being shared with the other half of poor comedy and just forced situations involving Steven and his pink powers. Believe me, I can't be able to actually take the second half of this episode seriously with the first half being mostly for comedy. I mean, at least in Change Your Mind, there were kind of humorous moments here and there, but since that they were trying to stop White Diamond, it actually made the stakes a lot more serious than the stakes in this finale. When Steven and the Yellows head inside White Diamond's head, this is where the episode starts to become really dark and way more dramatic, because after White Diamond completely mind controlled everyone by completely being flawless, she takes Steven and takes the gem off of him. If you put yourself in Steven's place and the adventures that he went through throughout the entire series, it will be a life that no other child will ever go through. And even though when he gets matured, it would still become a really difficult task to handle all the mess that Pink Diamond caused. Believe me, Pink Diamond is one of those characters that can easily affect Steven's trauma. Granted, the trauma that Steven went through in future is mostly his doings, but considering that he's just trying to move forward and it's really difficult to have so many things going on at one time, can easily cause so much stress in your mind. If Rose Quartz was actually a character that wasn't Pink Diamond, I can say that for what she can do is probably give Steven some motivation on how to handle the stress that is around him. And trust me, I am one of those people that are mostly upset that Pink Diamond was Rose Quartz this entire series, and it really affects the 4 seasons of this show when you completely see the moments that he had with Greg along with Steven. And whenever I completely look at this episode, knowing that Pink Diamond was pertaining to be Rose Quartz, it really makes the stakes in this honestly believable, but at the same time, it really shows that Steven wants to be himself, not taking orders from White Diamond, especially her determination to make everyone be themselves for her own way. And considering that this finale is mainly focusing on White Diamond and Steven Universe, I honestly think that what they had at the end of having the characters reunite like Sadie and Laws, along with the gems being released from the bubbles, is what White Diamond doesn't understand until Steven completely shows her of how the gems should live and not being tormented by others. Yes, I am aware that people are so fed up with the forgiveness from other people when it comes to overusing it. And I cannot believe I say this, but at least Friendship is Magic and Across the Girls did it much more better when it comes to the characters not crossing some serious limits. It really goes to show that the writers of Across the Girls were a little smaller despite the fact that they kept losing the same ideals over and over again. So when I completely saw this special for the first time and just see Steven just giving his forgiveness to White Diamond is just so subvert that it just really makes Roller Coasters of Friendships ending downright innocent. Getting back to Blue and Leto, the fight that they had at the beginning of the episode is rushed, obviously, but I can tell that the relationship can easily make this finale at least tolerable when it comes to their character development. And it's honestly disappointing that we don't get to see more of it, considering that after this finale, we just don't get we just don't get any development from these two characters. They made 2 appearances in the movie, and they only made a serious role in 2 episodes of Future. So I honestly think that their potential was wasted. Granted, it's mainly the fact that they're villains and it takes a lot of time for them to get redeemed, but I honestly think that Rebecca Shoko could have been a lot more serious if she wanted to make these characters really menacing with understandable meanings. However, the biggest issue I have with returning characters from Future is that even though that the Diamonds at least tried, mainly Blue and Leto, Spinel is probably the waste potential of this finale to have a great climax. Seriously, if you watch the movie, you can tell that she had a really devastating backstory when Pink completely abandoned her for 1,000 years. And when you completely see her in this finale, she's just basically like Pinkie Pie, except for the fact that she doesn't have a brain. I get that she was like this when Pink Diamond was keeping her occupied, or vice versa, but at the same time, I can tell that they really wanted to have Spinel being a comic relief in this episode instead of just giving her more development and helping Steven on his trauma. When she and the other Diamonds arrive at Beach City to see Steven's corruption, her reaction is way too over the top, and I can honestly tell you that it just makes her a completely different character. You cannot do these reactions and actually make me convinced that this is actually Spinel, the same Spinel from the Steven Universe movie. It just doesn't usually fit, especially the trauma that she felt with was almost at the same level as Steven's. Granted, it's debatable that it's worse because of thousands of years of abandonment, but still. But aside from that, when we completely see Steven about to shadow White Diamond in order to get the trauma out of him, it really goes to show that Steven is just literally trying everything he can in order to handle every situation on his own. Which kind of makes the plot involving Steven not telling anyone more understandable, but considering that this is the 4th to final episode of Steven Universe Future, it really makes the scene a lot more confusing, considering the fact that he gave his forgiveness to White Diamond. Some may say that his other half of him wants to forgive White Diamond because he sees something in her that no one else is, but the other half is just him just blaming White Diamond with all the trouble that she caused. They're trying way too hard to see the other side of White Diamond as considered good. And if I actually would give this scene much credit, is the fact that if they actually put a lot more development in Change Your Mind, because I'm really serious. Some of these scenes right here just raises more questions, and even though that is something that can make a cartoon have more discussion with, it still raises so many questions to the point that for one of the final episodes of Steven Universe Future, you really expect a second season from the future. And believe me, an epilogue series, despite being one season only, just isn't enough. Anyway, I should probably discuss the battle of Steven and White Diamond and Corrupted Steven against the Crystal Gems. I'm gonna point this out right now, considering the fact that this show is mainly about love and family and not like being a bit serious. While it does take itself seriously, but not like way seriously, I can say that these two battles are really underwhelming. Because of the pacing issues, they really had to cram in everything involving the Crystal Gems fighting off Corrupted Steven in 11 minutes. And in Change Your Mind, Steven only said one line about the fact that he's a child, which completely surprises White Diamond. Not to mention he gives his forgiveness towards White Diamond. I don't know what battle I can easily prefer to, because you can really tell that there could have been different ideals of what they can do involving Corrupted Steven going to different locations, and how they can execute them into having the other characters like Laws and the others human characters to help out. Trust me, it's really depressing to actually see this episode as an 11-minute episode instead of extend it to a 22-minute episode at least. It's really hard to actually think that these characters only stop Corrupted Steven with a hug, which I'm gonna get to soon. At the same time, I honestly think that we will probably see a lot of interesting setups of the humans just trying to stop Corrupted Steven, but it just keeps getting worse and worse. I consider Corrupted Steven the Hawk of Steven Universe. This epilogue builds up the finale of this, of seeing Corrupted Steven becoming a monster, and they show this in the intro of this epilogue series. So I really think that they could have done a lot more, and when you completely see Corrupted Steven doing nothing but just causing a lot of chaos around Beach City, you really want to actually see what he can actually do with his other abilities that we haven't seen yet. Seriously, Cartoon Network really dropped the ball so much when they have Rebecca Sugar and the Crewverse people to work on this episode with a short amount of time. However, even after binge watching this and completely enjoying of how the series built up to this point despite so many questionable decisions, I still enjoy I Am My Monster, and I can say that it's the episode that completely saves Future's finale by beating Change Your Mind. Yes, I'm not making this up. I consider Future's finale better because of I Am My Monster. Yes, the stakes in this episode isn't like what Change Your Mind stakes were like, but at the same time, considering of how long Steven has been helping other people and we get that speech from Connie, instantly makes this episode better compared to Change Your Mind. Seriously, if I was comparing Change Your Mind to this episode alone, this would definitely beat Change Your Mind. Granted, it's not a fair comparison considering that this episode is 11 minutes while Change Your Mind is 44 minutes, but still, I really think that they really did what they could in order to make this episode really memorable and probably one of the biggest highlights of the final episodes of not only Future, but also Steven Universe in general. And I do understand that people are really criticizing this so much on the fact that Steven's problems all go away with a hug. However, if you watch Two Ruins videos of how Steven's corruption can't be fixed, if I spelled that video title correctly, it really goes to show that they didn't stop the trauma or PTSD from Steven. They just turn him back into a human and that's literally the best of what they can do. Seriously. If you're ever in Steven's place and just dealing with so much trauma and so much stress in the past, you will probably be in this same state as his for a very long time, and it will never go away. And most of the episodes involving Steven talking to his father about how he's gonna feel these emotions until he dies is really heartbreaking. Believe me. Even if the epilogue series didn't improve much from the original series' issues, I can still say that they did what they could, and for what it is, it's still solid for trying to fix Steven from getting corrupted even worse. And seeing Steven completely crying so badly because he let it all out because everyone fully understands really makes this ending probably one of the best endings I've seen from Steven Universe as a whole. I wouldn't say that this is one of the most tear-jerking moments from any other cartoon, especially from this show, because people may debate on which tearjerker is superior. But all in all, I still say that the ending of this episode really makes this episode really good. It's just a shame that we don't get to see the aftermath after this episode. That is pretty much what fanfiction should do, but at the same time, fanfiction honestly isn't the crew of us people who really expects to see something unique and very unexpected from Steven Universe's future. But what do I think about the final episode, The Future? Well, compared to the last 3 episodes, I think that the episode's pacing is fine. It's not terrible, it's fine. I mean, considering that they're trying to give you the understanding that Steven needs to get away from Beach City in order to fix everything from his trauma and PTSD, I can honestly tell you that the Crystal Gems are just trying to keep it cool, because they know that Steven isn't fully mad at them, but at the same time, he really wants to get away from them in order to fix off his issues. And I'm just gonna let this out right now, I did not like the ending from Change Your Mind. It's not terrible. I mean, the Change Your Mind song sung by Steven is really good. However, it just doesn't make up on the fact that what we've witnessed from him and Wade Diamond doesn't really fix most of this. And as a matter of fact, considering that we've always heard that there's going to be a movie along with a final season being planned during the time of July of 2 years ago, I honestly think that they really wanted to do this as advertising. I mean, we see Paul, Garnet, and Amethyst with different outfits, and we're going to see these outfits again in the next season and in the movie. So I can honestly tell you that even though that this is a really heartwarming ending to see that everything is completely over with, well, not 100%, I still don't think that this is literally the best ending I can say involving a cartoon like Steven Universe. But compared to the future, the final episode of Steven Universe Future, we get to see Steven completely saying goodbye to everyone before he completely goes to different states while completely getting over his trauma. I can say that some people may consider this really boring and a weak way to end off Steven Universe, but considering that they really did what they could, this is the episode that came out after I Am My Monster, even if the time skip of this was 2 months after, I still found this ending a lot more better compared to Change Your Mind. Aside from a throwback of the Cookie Cat song that was sung in the very first episode of Steven Universe, nearly every moment involving Steven completely having interactions with other characters like Garnet, Lapras, Peridot is probably something really important since that he was close friends with. And believe me, it's honestly really amazing to actually see that Steven is trying to mature himself and just get away from all of his trauma. Because just by looking at his appearance in this episode, after 2 months of madness that he caused, you can really tell that he really wants to keep it cool while also just trying to have a really proper goodbye from all of his friends and mothers. Yes, I am aware that Garnet, Paula, and Amethyst are Steven's mother, so don't correct me. However, the problem that I have to agree with is the fact that this is still the final episode of Steven Universe as a whole, and the fact that there's not going to be any continuation, since that Rebecca Sugar said that there's not going to be any comic continuation after this. And compared to what My Little Pony Friendship is Magic got a 10th season in the comics, I can say full well that I can say that the fan base itself of Steven Universe is mostly upset for how the fact that we're not going to get multiple episodes from Steven Universe. I wouldn't say that this is on the same category of if the show continues on for so long, it's going to get much more worse, even though at this point, from some fans, the show has already gone to a downward spiral. I can say that they're just trying to make this in a much more realistic setting by having Steven just trying to improve himself in order to become a better person. Speaking of becoming a better person, I think that what he does in Change Your Mind is something that really makes me hard to actually convince if he was doing the right thing or not. And even if some of the mistakes that he does in the future is considered way more questionable than anything, I can say that some people's opinions on that is just mostly on the fact that they just want to see the other side of Steven so that they can actually relate to his trauma. And yes, I will admit that the trauma that they portrayed in this epilogue series is mostly questionable, especially on the fact that they didn't have enough time in order to straighten things out. And to be quite honest, that is probably one of the only reasons onto why Steven Universe's future just a bum rap by so many fans who completely enjoyed this series from the beginning. And seeing it end is mostly their own perspective of what they thought they were going to be expecting from Steven Universe, but when they witness it that it's just going to end up like this, it just leads to the depression on the fact that if Steven Universe doesn't actually return, then I can honestly tell you that this finale, mainly this episode, is going to be mostly dated. But if this show did return in some other way in the near future, like Adventure Time did with Distant Lands, then I don't think it will probably introduce new villains or anything when it comes to of how Steven is after he completely got away from all the stress he went through. So I just think that if this is going to be the final episode from Steven Universe, I'm mostly fine with it, but I can still condone to the people who just are upset that this is the final episode of Steven Universe as a whole. There was so many things I didn't discuss involving Change Your Mind in the Future's finale, especially with the amount of ideas that can easily make these finales a lot more worse or vice versa, but at the same time, I can guarantee you that at this point, Change Your Mind is 2 years old, while Future's finale is almost a year old once we head into at the end of March. So as far as I'm concerned, since that we're entering in the new year to expect so many new things and hopefully pandemics ending, I can only hope that at this point, if Steven Universe does return, I really think that they can actually make some improvements over the stuff that they learned in the past. Or Rebecca Sugar might be working on a new cartoon for a different network instead, but I don't know what's happening at the moment. But other than my critique of both of these specials and saying that Future's finale is superior, I still say that these two finales are still very entertaining from a show that could have been a lot more better. But at the same time, a lot has to happen in production, and I guess that not every cartoon can be considered the greatest, which is mostly a shame. So if any of you guys are gonna say that I'm a fan of Steven Universe even after the show ended last year, then yes, I am. Like I said, there are so many things I need to talk about when it comes to Steven Universe, and it's gonna take me a long time in order to cover through all of them. But I don't want to overload my research on everything, because at the same time, I'm not a complete analysis person like other people who critique this show. The only thing I'm wondering is how the cartoons of this decade is going to be like compared to the decade that we had last decade. And trust me, it's always going to be something interesting to actually see how cartoons can easily improve over time. So far, The Owl House is the first cartoon of the 2020s decade, and if there's going to be new cartoons in this decade, I'm gonna try to actually put my focus and attention on them, despite the fact that at the end of the day, I just couldn't because my expectations sometimes high and low when it comes to new cartoons. So that's basically all I have to say involving this video. I really hope you enjoy it, and even if it's long, I really hope that you comment down below on what you think about this video and two specials of Change Your Mind and Future's finale as a whole. So that culminates Cartoon Week. And the sad thing is, this is only the beginning of me doing these types of weeks. So I'll see you guys next time.